I would like to present the research project on Jewish architecture I'm being part of, and share some thoughts on the subject of the second life of the examined building and areas. Thank you. Another slide. Our research is related to the desert region beneath the Atlas Mountains in the Kingdom of Morocco, which I will be referring to as the Southern Morocco in a simplified way. And I will be presenting our findings mainly from the valleys of rivers Draa, Ziz, in particular Sus and Dades. The first half of 20th century, Morocco was home for one of the biggest Jewish community in the Islamic world. But due to the political changes, most of the Moroccan Jewry left for Israel, France, Canada, and US in the 40s and 60s. The Moroccan Jewish community dates back to pre-Islamic period, and it is a community close to Amazigh culture of Sahara, which differs in language, liturgy, and lifestyle from the later incoming Sephardi Jews, who settled mainly in the northern part of Morocco. Influence of the South Moroccan Jewry is kind of dispersed around trade routes, and it can be found not only in the bigger towns, bigger cities, but also in the rural areas spread along the rivers, which I mentioned. Mainly in the small fortified towns is still preserved the vernacular adobe architecture. That means all urban areas are made from unfired clay bricks. And due to the poverty of the south, this technique is still used. Even though the earthen synagogues and Jewish quarters, so-called mellahs, are one of the last of its kind in the world, in Morocco, there haven't been done any systematic research up to date. At least we think so. With a collective of scholars and students of the Department of Middle Eastern Studies at Charles University in Prague, together with the Czech Technical University, we started to explore the area, mapping the architectural evidences of the historical Jewish settlements, graph measurements, 3D scans of building and whole quarters, as well as the oral testimonies of the local people and the expats worldwide. So far, we have gathered data about 35 locations, mainly mellahs and cemeteries, and 15 of them possessing a synagogue. I've explained there is a Jewish space in southern Morocco, and now I would like to talk about the agents who are perceiving and shaping this space in a various way. There is a growing tourist industry in Morocco, and Jewish culture as an understandable, or at least familiar, for European and American tourists, has already found its way to guidebooks, and it's already being commodified all over the Morocco. Yet, the south is still on the edge of mainstream tourism, visited mainly for the Sahara camel tours with special shuttles. So tourists basically go back and forth. The government of Morocco has a remarkable role in preserving the Jewish heritage of Morocco. It is actively financing the restoration of the synagogues, mainly in the northern part of and financing the protecting walls of all Moroccan Jewish cemeteries, even in the remote areas in the deep south. There is the aspect of the tourism, of course, Jewish tourism, but also building the image of a tolerant, multicultural state, even though not all the Amazigh or Haratin people would agree that this image of the Moroccan kingdom is being accurate. This is the synagogue in the town of Amazigh. This is not really a must-see in a tourist itinerary, but yet it is sometimes visited. And it is the southest synagogue which was restored recently. Due to the fact there are no experts on this type of synagogues, or at least they are not known in Morocco, we see some ambiguity as changing some of the materials, some aestheticization, and not erecting the bima, the reading pulpit, even though there are historic photographs of it. And we thought we are in contact with the Circus organization, which is being like organization for the South Morocco for the architecture heritage, and we presented the archive photographs of the synagogue from 20s and 50s, and even though it's you can Google them, the local authorities or the authorities in Morocco have no clue about them. So this is the thing. Another active agents are the pilgrim tourists. There is an old cult of miraculous Jewish graves and their veneration shared by Muslims and the Jews. Grave of specific rabbis, so-called tzadikim or saints, are annually visited and venerated. And the stories of miracle-making graves are particularly dense in the southern region and in the Atlas region. Those Jewish pilgrimages are still taking place, even though there are almost no Jewish residents in the south. So the graves are being visited by Jews from the bigger north cities, but also by Moroccan expats from all over the world. Nowadays, even by the second and the third generation. Due to the generation transfer, there is also a slow shift from the sense of visiting the long lost home to exotic holiday, and from the pilgrimages to pilgrimage tourism, open also to Jews with non-Moroccan origin. So after the South Moroccan Jewry suffered from dislocation, there is new South Moroccan collective identity, which is being realized at the time of the pilgrimage in the liminal space of the cemetery. Yet cemeteries in a good shape like this, with adobe graves in a village of Iril and Oro, are a rare thing. They look like this, and sometimes the protecting wall erected by the government is almost the only indicator of the graveyard. But the pilgrims are sometimes shaping the form of the cemetery, according to their own aesthetical standards. For me, this is really something that reminds me the Holocaust monument in Berlin. Probably it wasn't the idea. So there were done some irreversible changes.
May I shortly interrupt you? Yeah. Sorry, may I shortly interrupt you? At least I have some difficulties in hearing you. I think there are some slight glitches. Okay. Is that also for everyone else? Oh, maybe it's the problem is on my end.
I will try to be more louder.
No, you're loud enough, but there are some gaps in between.
So the connection.
So I don't know if I'm the only one who has this problem, then I really do apologize for interrupting you.
It's fine.
Okay, good. Then please go on.
Okay, I will try. Fine. So there are some irreversible changes, like using concrete instead of adobe for the tombs, and building new sanctuaries and pilgrim facilities in the area of the cemetery, which is kind of universal area, welcoming not only local expats, an area that raises no problematical questions, the ownership of the buildings in the former Jewish quarter. Of course, there are the local people in southern Morocco. Many of them use the former Jewish buildings as homes, storages, or barns. Thanks to this secondary using, the buildings are being repaired or at least maintained. There are, of course, cemetery guards, and their identity is sometimes very, very interesting, and it's already been subject to some. For us, the important thing is that there is still notion of the borders of the mellahs in those towns and urban areas. So everybody knows where the mellah is and where it is not, which is handy for us. And sometimes there is still the notion where the former synagogue is located. Also, because the visitors of the Jewish monuments, even in those rural, remote areas where the Jewish pilgrims are sometimes the only tourists, those places are perceived in many times as a part of the local pride. For others, the Jewish culture is a business opportunity, of course. Guides who possess reliable information, but there are also striking moments of communication. Very popular site. It is shop in town of Ouarzazate, which is like the most touristic place in our region. It's a hybrid institution, something between a shop and a museum, filled with fake antiques and a lot of fake lore, basically made up stories about the Jewish history, sometimes mix of their knowledge about Judaism, Islam. Sometimes we have heard some aspects of the Shia Islam, because that was something a bit different for the locals. So that's kind of like danger that is already been going on. In contrast, there is very authentic local folklore practice connected to Jewish cemeteries, Southern Morocco. It is believed that bathing at specific rate or leaving votive offering has magical effects. It's connected to health, mainly to pregnancy and finding a husband. So mainly for this reason, the visible practice is leaving votive offerings, typically female garments, brass, and combs. It is a widespread and common mainly in the Draa Valley. Drastic is the belief in magical effect of the Jewish bones, as being a reason for grave looting in some places. Bones are used in rituals of the local people and in folk medicine. It is a very delicate subject. Like it's very hard to investigate it or research it, but we have heard some stories, and I think there are visible evidence that this thing is going on, and it's a vivid kind of thing. In this place is close to Larumiat. There is even the protective wall, which is not very old and not very high, was being pierced, probably to gain access to this area, which is being frequently used, to say. Some of the forms of Jewish graves veneration done by local Muslims were known before the Jews left, but I'm convinced that after the Jewish exodus, these practices are intensified and changed to even more specific forms. The popular belief is also intensified by the pilgrims from all over the world coming to even remote areas. So imagine you are living in a remote village in the deep south, and where there is no tourism traffic, but once a year 3 buses filled with Jewish pilgrims from all over the world came to your village to see the Jewish graveyard. So that's probably big thing. And there are also cases of exhumation of the Jewish graves done by the relatives of them, by the expats, to bring the remains to Israel, which can also encourage the village population view on the magical status of the Jewish graves. I would like to conclude that without the archives and regional museum stuff we know from Europe, the commodification of the Jewish heritage is a great threat, causing erosion to the memory, of course, and it is also a danger for the buildings. In contrast to the fake lore for the tourist, there is a vivid folklore practice of pilgrimage tourism and grave looting on the other side, both very authentic but also destructive. Yet, I hope the scholar attention of the phenomena could help to preserve both the monuments and memory for the future, or at least we can try where there is still time. Thank you for your attention.